Okay. Good morning once again. So, last week, we covered a number of things related to how to audio check. Can you guys hear me loud and clear?
Yes, Prof. Good morning, Prof.
Good morning. So, let's get started. Fellow of the Royal Geographical Society, fellow of higher education academy. So, so we talked about characteristics of scientific research, characteristics of research must have, level of operation of research, basic pillars of research. We talked about all those things. So today we're going to continue about some of the important concepts. And I remember we also talked about variable, type of variable. And most times people always ignore the intervening variable and the confounding variable, or the mediating and the moderating variable. So remember, when you are doing your research, it's always important to look at those variables because it might be something that will make your work easy. People have just been looking at dependent and independent rotating variables. So you might work to that can be the gap that people have just been looking at dependent and independent. What about those ones in between? So it's worth looking at. It's a valid research gap to actually fill if other people have not been thinking about those things. So let's look at, or before I go on, are there questions from previous class? Let's address that one first. Because if we are living in a house, if the first level is not all right, and we build another one on top of it, there will be trouble. Any question from the previous class? What's that? Tell me what that is. That all very very independent, very independent, very how do you measure effort, intelligence, academic achievement? You are right on the I think it's small building you can just go to the city. Okay. Now you have to remember that I'm not an expert in access. And the example I gave is just trying to put something, okay? But we can switch it around. Let's say instead of using intelligence here, socioeconomic circumstances of the house, it can determine there and look at where whether it be a criminal or not a criminal. Let's keep it within peace and security. Okay? Let's say socio-economic circumstances of the house where the kid is coming from can influence where they end up. Either they have criminal tendencies or they do not have criminal tendencies. But maybe we don't show that. Maybe instead of that, we say maybe the genetic disposition or the something that has to do with character. Because at times some of our characters are genetically, are from our upbringing, what is the way daddy does it is the way the son does it, something like that. So let's say we are in that school of thought that thinks that, okay, the family, let me not go genetic because I don't think there's a criminality in anybody's gene. It's how we raise people that makes them, it's just like being racist. Nobody is born racist. It's how we do them. So let's keep it socioeconomic circumstances or society, the neighborhood or the community, the person, the household first. Okay. But then, you may have the household influences determining whether you go towards criminal tendencies or or violence or non-violence. In between, what are the factors that could moderate how this outcome comes into play? Let's think about it. First, whether community be even if the socioeconomic circumstances bad, that's correct tendency that they do not tolerate nonsense. Never can tell if mediating or moderating. I think it's mediating. So, what will now moderate the manifestation of your criminal or non-criminal tendency? What will moderate it? Remember, moderation is the one that makes it higher or lower, that tempers it. What do you think? So, we have agreed that the societal factor will mediate. Because if you are in a society that is permissive of any nonsense, you have that encouraged. But if you are in a place where nonsense is not allowed, you tend to want to sit up. So now, what could now moderate that tendency or outcome now? Let's think about proper upbringing. Yes, education.
Sorry, Prof.
Okay.
Sorry,
Yes.
Prof. We hardly could hear you from here. I wouldn't know what is wrong.
Yeah,
The same.
Prof.
Yes, the audio is
We
very
hardly
poor.
could hear you from here, sir.
Hello? Is it better
Yeah,
now?
it is better. I think it is the handling of the microphone. I wouldn't know if you can.
Yeah, I guess. And we are not seeing
Imamish tendency. I don't know how to handle microphone and talk. It's a problem I have. I like to talk freely. That's the kind of push I have. If you know any school where they teach microphone skill, you have to let me know. Because you cannot study everything. You have to.
I think it's getting better now because they are conscious of it. Yeah.
Yes.
Conscious of it now. Yeah,
Yes.
because better. Yes.
Okay. So the something that is mediating or moderating. So we said maybe peer group or exposure in terms of education and things like that. So that could moderate the slide don't disappear. You need to now this is what we're looking for. Okay. We don't click on it. Slide. Oh, yeah. Try that one. But then slide. Okay, so which means socioeconomic condition of influences or non-violence or crime or non-crime or non-criminal or non-criminal tendency of a child. However, the society in which the household resides can mediate the relationship between socio-criminal or non-criminal tendency of a child. In addition to that, education and exposure of the kid could moderate the relationship. So, anything you are investigating, they are going to investigate that doesn't have moderating and okay. It's only if you don't think about it. It's always there. Most often, because it's a little difficult to think about, even you can look at, for example, once you are 40 and above, you have something to do. You get married, you have a kid, and then you control all the profile of people who are terrorists. It's been made. You can issue in between them. So most of the time, you don't want to think. So I want you to mediating and moderating variables are always there. Just to give you a thought. Okay. I hope my microphone is I'm doing good. Like I said, they're not. Okay. So, any other question before I move on to next? Okay. I was talking about some additional. Very concept, very basic concept that you need to think about when you are doing research is proposition. Okay? Proposition is different. See that most people don't use even though they know that it might be appropriate for their work. If you have research questions, you can turn your research question also to a proposal that this is what I'm proposing that likely to be what is going on. But remember, proposition may not necessarily lead to hypothesis. Okay, you may not. For example, people in political science, maybe you are not testing anything, you are not doing any analysis. You will present your proposal. This is what I think. And then, when you get to the body of the work, provide evidence to either back up your position or tell us that that proposition is not valid. But when it comes to the point where you know you are doing that statistically, then you need hypothesis. Okay, so let's look at proposition in another way. Okay, a little bit more detail. It is a tentative or conjectural relationship between the form. You are declaring that an increase in student intelligence causes an increase in their academic activity. This is what you think. If this one increases, this one will also increase. Okay? So, you may test proposition. We always test hypothesis. Once you have a proposition, you can turn it now to the empirical formulation. It's alternative empirical formulation, whereby you now turn it into such form that can be tested. Proposition cannot be tested. It's just something like an idea of what you think, okay, but you cannot test it directly because it's just a declaration of what thing is going. In order to test it, you must turn your proposition to hypothesis. That is when it becomes something that can be tested. Empirical formulation of proposition is hypothesis. Okay? Madam Fati, or who is that? So, proposition, most of the time, you cannot see in any body of water in politics. In other places where they do more of qualitative, and then they have to now, since they did an interview, did a focus group discussion. From that, we now sit back of this factor. But we don't test the code. Can only say, based on what we have, it might be that this is valid or not. Okay? But once we go to the hypothesis rules, it means that whatever we tested can be general. What do I mean by generalization? That if we have collected data, we have taken a sample, because it's impossible for us to provide a copy. Let's say the last time we were talking about young people and their participation in cyber crime. So let's say we sample some group of young people, let's say age 13 in Obia. It's impossible for me to cover all the people of that age. Maybe I took 400 out of that. Okay, let's say the idea was best that is a relationship between socioeconomic background and participation in cyber crime. Which means I'll check students or not necessarily students, I'll check the teenagers. I'll check whether what is their socioeconomic background, what is the background of their parents, which socioeconomic status or background. You know, then ask them, have you ever participated? Yes or no? So I now want to see, is there a relationship between where they are coming from? If I do that test, so my hypothesis will be status. If you have socio-economic upbringing, the chances you are going to participate in cybercrime is high. Now, and that turns that to a miracle that in empirical form, now that I'm going to now turn into empirical form of that. There is a statistically significant relationship between participation in cybercrime and so it's two of them. So one is not testable, the other one is testable. Proposition can be modified and reformulated to lead to hypothesis. Okay? But normally we don't ask you to put proposition, but you should have at the back of your mind. What is your proposition when you are studying this? This is what is at the back of your mind? What are you thinking that is going on? Can you also say that that proposition is a doubt? Not necessarily a gap. It's like a question that, or it's like an inkling, an intuition you have about what is going forward. You may see them out of that, but it doesn't matter whether it's legal or illegal, it will take it. Especially when it's very lucrative. That is my intuition, and that is my proposition. Okay? Then I will now go to the of young people and their participation in cyber. That is the one I'm now subjected to statistical tests. What I got from that statistical test, I can now generalize it for Obia local government where I've taken the sample. Okay? So that is where hypotheses become better. I can generalize from the result. Because when hypothesis test, we are trying to make sure that what we have is actually real association, real differences, and if over and over and over again, get similar results. So that if we use cybercrime we need to take people out of poverty. If I found that information, if I found that information, then I can make a very confident recommendation that we have found that lower economic status is related to higher participation in cybercrime. Therefore, we must do something. People out of poverty. If we don't,
Please, I just want to make an observation. Observation, Prof. I just want to make an observation. The observation is that when you face us, we hear you clearly than when you are backing us.
okay, it means now.
Yes. Whenever you face us, you are a bit closer to us, we hear you. But when you are backing us, talking to those people, to our colleagues, physical, we hardly hear you. It fluctuates.
Later you are connected to that point. It's all right. I will, but it would not be nice for me to be backing the people that are here too. So find a middle ground.
No problem. There is a way Professor Ihanocho used to do it. He used an ambo and backs those people. He does it. And we yes, Prof.
You have 2 degrees
Yes,
or
Prof.
180 degrees evidence. Remember, your data, your research must be confirmable. Your evidence must be available to back up your conclusion. Don't worry.
It's an observation.
Now. It's okay. It's okay. Give me your proposition. Put it in form of proposition.
Okay, Prof.
Put it in form of proposition. No, that is how to learn. You must be able to put what you have shown now. Put it in form of a proposition.
Yeah.
Never forget it. That's where I put it in real life, and if you can bring out real life experience or example of what you are learning, there is no way you are going to forget. We have put it in proposition. Anybody online that wants to help him, help him. Anybody that helps him, make sure you demand your lunch money from him.
No, Prof, the challenge is that the examples you were giving about proposition and the explanations, we didn't hear you. That's the challenge. So we can't even give examples now.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes. It's a bit better.
You can hear me?
Yes.
From what we're seeing on the screen right now, you can see the screen, isn't it?
Yes, we can.
It's better now. Okay. It's better.
Based on what I've forgotten his name, what is said now, the proposition that I have on the board, can you convert his intuition? Can you convert it to a proposition? Look at the example of proposition that is on the board.
Increase in you are close to us increases our hearing you properly.
Very good.
An increase.
I like that. Another version of that Yeah, but let's see another version of that. Another version of that.
Hello, Prof. I want to try. I can say that the position of a lecturer has relationship with the quality.
You see, if you were to learn, I like that. So, Mr. Okere, if you say you cannot hear me again, but you can read, you can see. So you cannot hear, you can see. The proposition out of that word.
Yeah, Prof, I want to toe the line of my colleagues to say that when Professor Lawal backs the online students, they could hardly hear him.
Prof. And the point is that we don't hear you. We hear you, but we hardly. Okay. We hear you.
Hello, Prof. Hello, Prof.
Yes.
The quality of your audio depends on your position, sir.
You see, we're coming with so many people. So let's now turn those propositions. Let's turn them to hypothesis. Hypothesis is like the proposition we had was that the lower the socioeconomic conditions, circumstances of the young people from the household, the higher the tendency to participate in cyber crime. So we now turn that to hypothesis. I hope you are still hearing me.
We are hearing you, Prof.
Yes, Prof.
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Can you still hear me now?
Yes, Prof.
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
We can hear you, sir. We can hear you, Prof.
We have shown that the positions are invalid.
Position, please.
Prof, let me adjust the closeness of us, whether you back us or you are facing us, increases our hearing you. Not now when you are backing. At least amendments and amendment. The proposition should be that when your closeness increases the tendency of our hearing you, not backing us or facing us, Prof. My submission.
Let me tell you what the angle of the antenna, so that the antenna can still be signal. So that proposition is still also wrong. But I enjoy this kind of thing because you are thinking about what you are doing. That's the best way. Then you don't have to cram anything. You can always, whenever you are exposed to doing something, you can think of the example and do it. State hypothesis now. We said that we are thinking that the socioeconomic status of the young people is higher crime. So we now want to turn that to hypothesis, which can be tested. So we will not change that statement now. Between and participation in crime. That is not, which is our proposition. Okay? Then we turn that proposition to hypothesis, which can be empirically tested. You cannot test proposition. Okay? You must turn it to hypothesis if you want to test it. Okay? I hope that is clear now. People online.
Yes, we can hear you, Prof.
Prof. We are
enjoying the lecture.
hypothesis also, we have what we call strong hypothesis and weak hypothesis. Hypothesis will be weak if it shows no direction or causality. What do I mean by that? If I say there is an association between participation in cybercrime, I did not say the direction of the I did not say whether as one increases, the other one decreases. I just said there is an association. Which is directionality. And also the weak hypothesis shows direction, but then it is strong. If I say that, for example, young people's socioeconomic status negatively their participation in cybercrime. If I say negatively now, it means that if socioeconomic status goes down, participation goes up. If socioeconomic status goes up, participation goes down. That is what I mean by negatively related. So if I have an hypothesis that shows the direction, that indicates the direction of the association, then I have what we call a strong hypothesis. See, many of these things that I'm talking about here, I want you to challenge me. You will come back and tell me later. You see that most people don't pay attention to this when they do it. People with normal week, people don't think about it's a possibility that I can states which direction I can go. And there's a way I can test it to be sure whether that hypothesis is falsifiable. There's statistical techniques to do, but people do the basic one, which is just to do the weak hypothesis and leave it at that. But me, I always expose my students to it. Know about it. Now you make a conscious decision which direction you want to go. So if there is no directionality of there is strong. So who wants to give us an example of some strong hypotheses? People online, you are the majority. Let's give you the floor. An example of a strong hypothesis. Remember, a strong hypothesis must show the direction that you are looking at, the direction of the relationship or the differences or whatever you are looking at. It must show the direction, then it is a strong hypothesis. Anyone? Or we defer to the offline people. Okay. Offline people are taking it. Significance does not indicate direction. Direction must show in terms of positive or.
Prof, can I come in?
Hello, Prof. Can I come in?
Go ahead.
Okay. as an example of a strong hypothesis, I can say daily exposure to the sun leads to increased levels of happiness.
Increase in there is a relationship, a positive relationship between exposure, amount of hours of exposure to sunshine and happiness. There is a positive. If it is positive, it means that if there is an increase in the number of hours exposed to sunlight, there's increase in the amount of happiness. My brother, you have played with cancer. But yes, but it's a strong one. Okay, you are correct. It's a strong one. Okay, fantastic. Thank you for that.
Prof, can I say this?
Wait, give us a minute. Give us a second. Let somebody. Directly related to your levels or your high levels of happiness. Yes. So that's another way to say it, which still indicates direction. Okay. So I may not necessarily use the word positive, but the way you have stated it, please state it again so that people will learn from it. There's the increased exposure to the sun is directly related to the. So that was why I used that word. That's significant. Significant does not tell us which direction significance is. If we are going to peer pressure increases the chance of drug abuse. See now, negative increases the chances of. So we're already pointing in the direction where we think the association or the relationship is going. So immediately you specify the directionality, you have a strong hypothesis. Please, online, you can go ahead.
Yes, Prof. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
I want to say that increase in drug abuse can bring about the tendency of crime, increase in crime in the society.
Okay, increase level of drug abuse in community increases the level of crime activity. But let me surprise you. There was a time, there's a particular neighborhood that there's a criminal crime in that neighborhood. Because if and we come and apply, so that crime, that neighborhood is one of the safest places to take. So everybody was buying their drugs and doing their thing. Nobody, no crime. If you commit any crime, if they steal your thing, just go to that guy and report. They will bring out who committed that crime. That person will return what has been stolen. So the police left him. The day you this guy, he said, no, they should go and pick him up. They picked him up. The rate of abuse crime skyrocketed. That you go to just make a call. So we are saying that yes, that more drugs in neighborhood leads to more crime. But there are also some places where drug sales does not necessarily lead to more crime. But it's something that tested. Okay? So okay. Any more examples?
Let me try. Excessive social media use, negative performance.
Okay. Extensive social media performance. And we have put a direction in it. I put this it is when we collect the data, you are now telling you have to agree with the hypothesis. Okay, because you let the person and the null hypothesis. The null hypothesis is that such thing that she proposed is not correct. So when the data comes, we analyze it and we check, do we reject the null hypothesis or do we retain the null hypothesis? So we don't have to agree or disagree. We just need to let the person collect the data and test the hypothesis. When it is tested, we can now have a consensus that, okay, the evidence supports the null hypothesis or the evidence supports the alternative hypothesis. So there's no need to agree or disagree. Maybe you use a lot of social media and you're a group person, you can manage.
Okay, let me flip the point. The term social media at this point, in this context, is vague.
And it's too
broad. It's broad.
So we have to be.
Even if it's a hypothesis, I think she can also narrow it down.
You are absolutely correct. So we want you to now say, instead of social media. So remember, we also talked about that last week, that you have the concept, you have the construct. It needs to be operationalized in form of a variable. So even if you say social media, you will have to tell us which one are you talking about. Is it Twitter? Is it YouTube? Is it Instagram? Is it TikTok? Which one are you talking about? Because only you can. Okay, so you have to think about that. I know there was a research that shows that TikTok actually negatively impacts self-image of young female teenagers in the United States, because a lot of them, because they use this filter, so if they don't use the filter, they don't feel beautiful. So the point that some of them are going for surgery. Crazy thing. So thank you very much. I like that kind of engagement, because now you see that research doesn't have to be something that professors and doctors that do research will just think you can also engage. You talk to them, what are the things that makes our work publishing that other people can read it and say, oh, this is a good work. So that's proposition. Yes. For you to be a professor in Nigeria, the criteria is that you must have teaching, you have a minimum of 10 years teaching experience, you are publishing in that area. So if you don't have that teaching experience, you might not be able to do that. But I know in the United States and I think in some part of Europe, they have professor of practice. So let's say you are working in a particular field, you've been working for the last 30 years. You know your company. Everybody knows that you're an expert in that area. We can give you a professor for practice that area, and we invite you regularly to come and teach that practical thing to our students. So I know that is possible outside Nigeria. I know, at least categorically, I know of the United States, some universities that they give professor of practice to people who have distinguished themselves in the public sector or private sector. They give them professor of practice. So it was nice. Don't let it discourage. Maybe when I come this year, I can make that happen. So, because I think it's a valuable thing that if we recognize the exercise that people bring from necessarily in academia, it's valuable for us. If somebody has been working in the security industry for the last 30, 40 years, if he has distinguished himself, yes, we should be able to tell him you're a professor of practice in so. Don't we give honorary doctorate? So why can we not now record who know what they do? So that's why, because I think it also makes people want to work diligently and excel in their field because they know there's a possibility that they can also do. And we should benefit from that. So, but the tendency for Nigeria to monetize everything is my challenge. A very different breed of people. So,
excuse me, Prof. So it means that somebody who is doing well as a criminal can also be a professor in that area. Or the Yahoo boys who are getting enough money can be a professor.
Think about it, there are mediating and moderating variables. Is our society missing out honorary degrees? What do you mean? No, we have been giving them. I would not be giving. You know, doctorate, we know all the other criminals across the country that we are giving honorary doctorates. So the mediating variable is that is the society permissive of such things? If the society permits it, then we not give it. Oh, what Oga, are you not in Nigeria?
Okay, Prof, you can also amend your proposition that it is only for positive investments. Positive. It is given to positive attitude.
Yes.
Sympathize.
So that's why when you're campaigning for VC, you should vote for me. That is what
Okay.
I think the valid thing to do for people who have excelled in their field. Because when we teach on campus, we might tend to be very academic. But when somebody who has been in the field teaches you that same thing, it brings in some things that are not academic. It will give you how it is in real life, which we may not get from many of your professors. So, you know,
engineering, from time to time, the school invites practicing engineers to come and teach them practical aspects of whatever they are doing.
So, and those people in no time, once they are vetted, then they see that they are very good. They bring them in regularly. They are practicing people, they bring them in support whatever they are learning. If you are a student and you learn the academic, you learn the practical, you are a better person than somebody who just knows the academic. So it seems like we are talking about positioning. So let me move on to talking about qualitative and quantitative research. Okay, when we do.
Sorry, I want to get there. I want to be faster than you.
No, it's all right.
What's the relationship between proposition, hypothesis, and theory?
Okay. Proposition is your intuition about the how do you think the constructs in your work are related or interact. That's your proposition. Your intuition about how the construct or the variable in your work or your research work, how you think they are related or interact. Hypothesis is the empirical formulation of that proposition. You cannot test proposition. You must turn your proposition to hypothesis for it to be testable. Okay? Theory, their general understanding about how things work that we may use to back up our research work. For example, the strain theory. Okay? That if there are things that you didn't get or there are things that stresses you in society, it might push you towards crime or violence. When you are satisfied, when the society is supportive and everything is fine, you will move away from violence and crime. That's a theory that we can use to explain why do people participate in crime or violence. So if we are looking at, you were talking of peer pressure, I mean, and then somebody mentioned something also about drugs. So all these things, if they are strained within you, something that stresses you, it can push you towards violence or crime. It's like when somebody frustrates you, the next person that comes your way, you might slap that person. That's what the strain theory, I'm just saying it in a very funny way, but in a broad way, that's what the strain theory is saying. When there is stress in your life, it can bring about, it can manifest as violence or crime in another aspect of what you do. So that's theory. So if I want to investigate young people's participation in cybercrime and the relationship to their socioeconomic status, I can use strain theory as a theoretical framework which I can use to explain what I'm doing. So what I will now be doing is to find out, is the strain theory still valid for this kind of relationship? Can still theory still explain this relationship? Or what strain theory does not work for you? That would be a deductive research. Remember, if I'm trying to confirm a theory, I'm doing deductive research. If I'm trying to formulate a theory, I'm doing inductive research. I hope you're seeing how all these things are doing. Okay? So that's how they are related. Okay? So quantitative, quantitative rather, you are trying to quantify things, you are trying to really quantify the relationship and understand how this one is related to this one, how this one influences this one, how this one is different from this one. So in quantitative research, you are interested in how long, how many, the degree to which, okay? So you also want to generalize. When you are doing quantitative research, you want to generalize. You want to take a sample and use what you got from the sample to make conclusion for the population. Remember, I was talking about 13 years old to 19 years old people in Obiako, and I want to examine how their socioeconomic status is related to their participation in cyber crime. If I want to do that, I will take a sample from Obiako teenagers, and then I will do my statistical test. Once I finish my statistical test, I will be able to now generalize that in Obiako local government, lower socioeconomic status is associated with higher participation in cyber crime among teenagers. That would be my conclusion. If I have data, if I have the evidence to back such up, that would be my conclusion. So when you do quantitative research, you look more to generalize. You want to generalize the result from a sample for the population of interest. Okay, so you may measure the incidence of various view opinions in a chosen sample, for example, or aggregated results. So I could also go ahead and look at perception and things like that. But what quantitative essentially, the main goal of quantitative is that I want to generalize. I want to collect data in forms of numbers that are used to measure this, quantify that, and I want to now analyze it and use the results to generalize for the formula. Okay? But when you talk of qualitative, this is where things get a little bit more interesting, because you are more concerned about interpretation. You are not trying to generalize. If you are studying, for example, we want to study perception of teenagers. Maybe another objective in my work is what are the perception of teenagers? So what is their perception towards cyber crime? So I may do a focus to sit down with all of them. Some, maybe I do one in room of Lumaya, one in room different communities like that. I gather the youth, sit them down, say, tell me, what do you think of cyber crime? They explain, they say whatever, I let them talk generally. When I finish and I synthesize, what are the common themes? What is their own feeling about this? What is their interpretation of cybercrime? Some may say, major things that came out of that discussion. You see, I'm not trying to analyze anything statistically. I'm just trying to interpret what they have said and bring up an explanation. With qualitative, look at
and you try to talk to him.
Just this one. I will tell you to join it too now. You want to take fun from this. And this is also where the problem comes. According to each of those people on the cartoon there, that's a very tough one. That's a short perspective. So when you are bring all this perspective together, you are trying to show us what are different about these. But when we did quantitative, we want to see, is this one associated with this one? In order to be quantitative, you are not interested in numbers. You are trying to understand the underlying reason and motivations for action. So in that same vein, in that same our research, and in trying to now ask young people, those of you who are participating, why do it helps you to really deep. It's not everything you can measure. Shortcoming of quantitative. So that is difference between the two of them. Minimize that or close it. So we always advise that you do your work. Go out to your knowledge participation. It will also be nice for me to sit down with it and understand what how did you get what is your thing now? Maybe some are practicing stuff. What got you out? You that have just started, what got you? So quantitative allows us to be deeper and understand the underlying reason that motivates. So it's very good. But the problem is that I cannot generalize. Want to make policy, cannot make policy. Your perception, which is always going to change. If you are asking the money now, your perception about worrying the past and you are feeling a little bit fine, your perception might change. Maybe in the afternoon when everything is hot, by asking the same question, that will then useless. Something else. You say that your perception has changed now, only because of your condition. Maybe out of 10 participants, 5 say one shot. Then the other 5 say the woman is strong. Can't you aggregate it and turn it? Yes, you can aggregate it, but is any one of them wrong? No. So if we aggregate the average of strongly agreed, disagreed, where is it going to fall? Why? Yeah. You can tell us that most of the people think it is like this, while the minority thinks it is like this. That's fine. That means that those who are in the minority are wrong. They are not right. In this picture now, none of them, they are both right because they are talking from their perspective. So qualitative help us to see all the different perspectives that are there, but it doesn't help us to formulate policy. Because we want to formulate policy on the basis that we want to make life better for most utility of the most. That's the utilitarian theory. Take it now. What I'm trying to say. We can say performance of the current commissioner of police in Rivers State. So let me stick with this. Okay. If we are using it to formulate policy, for example, so that they will have the same perspective. Is it necessary for everybody to see things from the same point of view? If that is the direction we are going, we will never want to go in that direction because perception is perception. Perception is not just like, remember when we talk about logic as a means of acquiring knowledge. We said the same facts can be presented to different people. Conclusion. That is one of the shortcomings of using rationality as a means of acquiring knowledge. This is one of the shortcomings of the qualitative approach. It helps us to know things deeper. So let's not try to make it quantitative. Let's keep it as qualitative as it is. It helps us know some of the underlying things. Let quantitative do its work. Let qualitative do its work. That's the best way I think we should approach it. Okay.
Question, Prof. Excuse me, Prof. Excuse me, Prof.
Yes, give me a minute. Let somebody's trying to ask a question there, then I'll give you the floor.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. Question, yes. For qualitative, you use focus interview or you do content analysis of documents. Ethnographic study. That is qualitative.
So does the difference lie in how you maybe analyze data you have gathered and statistically?
If you are doing statistical analysis, you are gone quantitative. If you are doing a descriptive and interpretation of what you have gotten from sitting down with people, from focus group discussion, from interview, from content, for example, you might want to look at you are analyzing doing a policy analysis. Well, you take all those policies, you scrutinize them one by one, you take all the other policies that are joining in, you scrutinize them, and you come up with your own assessment of what are the problems with this policy, what needs to be adjusted, what are the challenges. You know that same policy, that same set of policy, another person will take it and come up with a totally different. So, but you are both doing the
quantitative without analyzing.
If you don't want to generalize, but still, the data is quantitative and you don't do frequently. But what do you achieve to those frequency? If you are taking the pain to collect data, you might as well subject it to proper statistical testing. But you have to remember, it is from the beginning. You have to start thinking, I want to subject this to statistical testing. So you must collect the data appropriately. Okay?
Okay, Prof.
Online. Go ahead.
Okay, Prof. From my own observation, could there be an effective qualitative research without first a quantitative research? That is one, because you begin to analyze in a qualitative research from what you have at hand, from those data collected, the numerical data or observation you have made in quantitative research. Then again, we have been told that qualitative research is the best. From the picture there, I can say that it is not, it is perspective rather, because you observe from your own position, which means it is perspective. That's what my observation is.
You are right that from the picture there is perspective, and that is what qualitative does. Okay? You can have mixed methods. You can have mixed methods whereby you combine qualitative and quantitative. The first question you ask, or the first statement, I don't know if anybody got it clearly. I didn't understand what you're trying to say. Let me let you repeat it, please. The first one. The first one.
I was saying whether there could be an effective qualitative research without first a quantitative research, because it seems as if they work together.
No, they can work independent of one another. They can
then
work.
How will you collect? Since qualitative involve analysis on the data, how would you collect data without the quantitative research?
Oh, you are missing data. You are thinking data only has to be number. Data is not necessarily have to be number. If I interview 10 people and I have the recordings of what our interview, or I have a summary, a transcription of what they have said, that is data, but it's not numerical. Are you getting me? So qualitative can stand on its own, and there are so many qualitative work. I can do a policy analysis. Please give me one policy or one legislation around safety and security or peace and security. And let's see where we can talk about anyone. Okay, let's say, for example, the policy